You know you're a Slovak when you can walk up to a saucepan on the stove, lift the lid, and see it's full of kielbasa chunks. Welcome! Welcome to the Human Nature Channel. I'm your host, Alex Tamsula, and what am I doing here? And here happens to be the other end of the farm garage. I thought a background change-up might be fun. Got myself a Jumpstart battery system right over here. Well, it's Tuesday night once again here in my dad's culinary farm garage. What does that mean? That means I eat pretty good down here. Oh, thank goodness my dad made macaroni this time. Usually in this slow cooker, my dad's making stew. He makes stew every other week. Now, don't get me wrong, it's really good stew, but there's so much of it, I have to put the leftovers into empty sour cream containers and take them home. I've got 2 of those things in my refrigerator freezer. But, the macaroni. Well, no matter how much of this I eat, I can take some of this home in empty sour cream containers, and back at the place, I can mix some of the stew and some of the macaroni, put it in the microwave, heat it up. I can eat that stuff every day. Now, the macaroni all by itself really isn't bad. In fact, it's pretty good. What my dad did was he put like onions and peas and stuff in it, and he put in bacon grease, and he put in bacon. Oh my goodness, my dad's shameless. I was pleasantly surprised to see that my video number 57, Paddock the Terminator, got 12 thumbs up. I think that's the most thumbs up any video on this channel has ever gotten. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you thumbs. It's great feedback. It tells me I'm getting better at making these videos. I'm also happy that my last 3 videos have each gotten over 100 views. I like the number 100. I like to think it means the same folks coming back week after week to watch the show. It's like filling an auditorium. If I keep getting over 100 views, I'll be motivated enough to keep giving you my sideways glance at October 1st on Route 91. So how about some Las Vegas shooting truth community yak? Because that's what you're here for. In my last video, number 58, a look at something that wasn't there, I ended up talking about Paddock's soft body armor, which kind of amazes me. And I came across it while I was looking for something else. I had this question. I'm like, okay, Paddock committed suicide in room 32135 of Mandalay Bay with a 38. Did he have another one? I didn't know. So I went to the Fit Report. And in the Fit Report, there is this inventory of evidence from the Mesquite home and the Reno home. I'm like, okay, so I'm going down through it, and I'm seeing interesting things. Paddock liked 9mm semi-auto pistols. He liked 12-gauge shotguns. A shotgun would keep coming up. His AR-15s were all different gun manufacturers. I've never seen anything like that. There was a .357 Smith & Wesson in the Reno, Nevada home, and then there's a .38 Smith & Wesson. So no, there wasn't anything special about that caliber of gun. So anyway, this inventory was covering page 105 and 106, and at the top of page 106 are the last 2 lines from the inventory of the Reno home, and one of the items was soft body armor. And I went, wow. Why would Paddock think he would need soft body armor? I don't know. And in fact, honestly, I don't know a great deal about that type. As soon as I get home tomorrow, it's the first thing I type into Google. But body armor speaks for himself. Now you might say, oh, it might have been part of the plan for the Las Vegas shooting. He was anticipating a shootout with the cops, but he changed his mind and left it home. Okay. You can be sure it's not for home protection, because if you got to walk around the house wearing soft body armor in order to feel safe, please call your nearest local mental health professional as soon as possible. So scratch that. So what's left? You have body armor because it's for your job. What kind of job would that be? Well, the kind of job where you're carrying cash or diamonds or valuable legal documents, and there's always the possibility somebody might walk up to you with a gun and shoot you and try and take what you have. That kind of a job. Courier, maybe. Personally, I think there's something significant about it. So there you go. Now, there's always something interesting here in my dad's garage. What can I show you tonight? Okay, in order to do this, I have to untether the camera. Let's see if I can pull this off. Do this, do this. Okay, here we go. We're going outside. And, okay, I'm going to put on my light. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is a parking meter in front of the entrance to my dad's farm garage. Little kids love it. They keep going like up to their dads. Hey, can I have a quarter, Dad? Can I have a quarter? There you have it. Well, I think I have everything I need. Sparkers at 20 paces. I got a salt shaker with a button on it that says, "Press me." I'm surprised I haven't shown you this before. I must be getting desperate. Oh no, not again. We're introducing a special feature called Alex's Book Club. I brought up 3 books that are going to get special mention. My silent partner gave me this, a critical appreciation of the mystery writer Raymond Chandler, who created the fictional private detective Philip Marlowe. And since I've read all the novels and most of the short stories, this is a delight to go through, so a shout out to my silent partner. I'm still trying to finish this thing. I may have to skip a week from doing a video, and not necessarily to finish this. I have a friend who's going to be going into the hospital for surgery. I may be called away for moral support. And this is for Starless Mystery. Hey Starless, I got my copy at 2-minute warning. Now, how I came by this book is the result of an interesting comment exchange between me and Starless Mystery, where she asked me if I've ever seen the Charlton Heston movie 2-Minute Warning. And I'm like, maybe. I may have seen it on TV. What it is, it's the story about a sniper at the Super Bowl. And it gets kind of strange. The TV version is different from the theatrical version. There's this added footage about a jewelry heist, so that the sniping is supposedly some kind of diversion. Well, that's not what the theatrical movie's about, and that's not what the book is about. So I told Starless, when I get a copy, I'll read it, and then I'll do a book report right here on the Human Nature channel. Okay, I got, well, I want to say a pair of glasses, but one of the lenses is missing. And it's frames, and you got a jeweler's loop where the missing lens is, and okay, I'm totally blind. And finally, we have Irv, who in the car on the way up just complained the whole time. He's like, I belong in the city. You're taking me up into the woods. I'm like, Irv, the state's name is Pennsylvania. The second half of the name is Latin for woods. You're going to be in the woods whether you like it or not. The city of Pittsburgh is in the middle of the woods. So anyway, enough of this, Irv. Put on your showbiz face. It's time for your close-up. Last time, I was talking about how you don't see the weekly YouTube videos on the Las Vegas shooting like you used to. And I neglected to mention as a notable exception, Richard, over at Vegas October 1 Sounds, who has been doing more than just a weekly show. He puts out videos every couple of days, and it's an amazing effort on his part. So much so that I've gotten behind in watching his work. Another reason I might skip doing a video next week so I can get caught up on things. Recently I saw a comment by Richard over at the Secret Safe With You live chat, and he said, I have with my channel attempted to provide those who view it with powerful arguments, knowledge, and understanding. Things which can be used as the basis for solid arguments for or against some theories. But no matter what I do, there will be those who attempt to discredit, vilify, and continue to spew nonsense. At the end of the day, Richard may emerge as the standard bearer for the real LVS truth community, since he is a powerful antidote to the poison from the charlatans, the hoaxers, and the grifters. I'd like to apologize for the oversight in not mentioning him, really. Next, a final thought on the presence of soft body armor in Paddock's Reno home, as I mentioned earlier. I went to Google and typed in soft body armor, and it is explained this way. In a bulletproof vest, several layers of bullet-resistant webbing, such as Kevlar, are sandwiched between layers of plastic film. These layers are then woven to the carrier, an outer layer of traditional clothing material. So there is nothing particularly special in calling modern body armor soft. The Metro cops responding to the Las Vegas shooting would have been outfitted in soft body armor. And I've already laid out my ideas on what owning soft body armor could mean. Normally, a person who owns such a thing and is not in the military or law enforcement might be considered a kook. Stephen Paddock may have been a lot of things, but I'd hesitate calling him a kook. So, in my anthropology of Stephen Paddock, this might be a good time to pause and take stock. In my last video, I talked about Dr. Vogel, who did the post-mortem on Paddock's brain, and his surprise at finding large amounts of corporea amylacea on the gray matter. This looks like evidence of Paddock's brain aging faster than the expected rate, and is a significant detail, although it hasn't gotten the attention it deserves. The question is, what would life be like for somebody with a prematurely aging brain? The Stephen Paddock presented to us in the media is of an insular, brooding, inwardly directed man who seemed to keep everything to himself. A lone wolf he's been called. But Paddock wasn't always that way. In an article in the Los Angeles Times from October 2nd, 2017, we hear from Stephen Paddock's brother-in-law from his first marriage, Scott Brunohler. Brunohler recalled the gunman in the 1970s and 1980s as a smart, fun-loving person who enjoyed entertaining on his boat at Castiac Lake and Buena Vista Lake in Kern County. He seemed like a normal, good guy. I don't remember anything bad back then at all. Brunohler's sister Sharon married Paddock in 1977. Brunohler said, "I'm still in shock." And of course he is. There was a period of time in Paddock's life when some sunshine got in, but that would change. In a recent article I read, brother Eric Paddock described Steve as athletic, although he didn't go in for team sports. Paddock seems to have been something of an outdoorsman, though. Here is that famous photo of him from his Alaskan fishing license of 2010. Even back then, 7 years before the LVS, Paddock didn't look like a happy guy. And he's getting the opportunity to go fishing, for crying out loud. Even in a mugshot, pedo brother Bruce could put on a happier face than that. But I'm not going to read too much into the fishing license photo. Paddock could have been hung over for all I know. Yet we look at this face and we know how he's going to end up. And it makes you wonder when Paddock started to realize that incrementally something was going wrong with his mind. So with a prematurely aging brain, how would Stephen Paddock feel? Would he be experiencing something like claustrophobia, as if darkness was slowly closing in around him because the mental acuity wasn't what it used to be? Maybe Paddock hated the thought of growing old and slowing down. Don't forget, he was no pansy. He was a big, strong guy, and if his behavior moving luggage into Mandalay Bay or driving back and forth from Las Vegas to Mesquite in the days before the shooting doesn't indicate the actions of a vigorous man, I don't know what does. Paddock probably knew something was going wrong, but would not have been able to know exactly what or why. That could drive a proud man crazy, but that still doesn't get us any closer to the why behind his firing down on that crowd of concert goers. There is still too big a gap to jump. When Stephen Paddock looked down at the Route 91 Harvest Festival, did he really hate those people enough to shoot at them? Or was it impersonal, just a job? The methodical nature of Paddock's planning seems to me to lean towards job, or a task he set for himself. That's another thing about that damn body armor. It's a work-related item, like the 3 computers and the 3 working cell phones and a 4th prepaid burner that had not yet been activated. I'm wondering out loud if the key to understanding the Las Vegas shooting is as a work-related dispute. Let's say, playing around with my idea of Paddock as some kind of federal informant, we could hear him making a call, or read a text, or even an email he might send to the FBI. What might he say? "You hung me out to dry. Now investigate this." If he didn't want revenge against the casinos, maybe he wanted revenge against the FBI, or any of the other alphabet soup of agencies that make up the U.S. security apparatus that he might have been snooping for. I don't know if that's true, but if it were, boy, that could explain a lot. And one final thing. The white powder on my car battery terminals would be a sulfate salt from the sulfuric acid within, probably lead sulfate if it's on the negative terminal, and maybe anhydrous copper sulfate on the positive side. I would like to thank my silent partner for bringing this to my attention. This really is his week, isn't it? Last Saturday night, my friend the Human Encyclopedia and I watched Joker with Joaquin Phoenix's Academy Award-winning performance, and I was greatly pleased at how good Joker was. I was originally reluctant to watch this movie because from the outside looking in, everything I heard about Joker caused me to think it was going to lean pretty heavily on older movies like Taxi Driver, with some king of comedy thrown in for good measure, and Death Wish, the version with Charles Bronson, since I haven't seen the one with Bruce Willis yet. But Joker turned out to be a highly original movie, going very far afield, yet staying quite nicely inside the Batman DC universe, and it also played a big role in finding a theme for this video. Now, my go-to troll, Yimmy the Greek, has gone to great lengths to convince me that I am, how you say, insecure. And the funny thing is, he's not 100% wrong, although I'd call it more anxiety than insecurity. Here is how it works. By Friday night, I have my first script written and rehearsed. So I've got to come up with the second script and get it rehearsed by Monday evening when I shoot my video clips. Somehow I have to fit this in between all the partying I do on weekends. And it's not as easy as it looks. The clock keeps ticking. There is always some anxiety before I find my next idea, and I don't necessarily consider that a bad thing. I'm putting a type of positive pressure on myself to get on with the next video. And the best part is, when I finally do get that next idea, all the anxiety goes down the drain like a bathtub full of water at the exact moment the clog gives way. Then I'm ready to rock and roll. That is what happened while I was watching Joker. Without giving too much away, if you haven't seen the movie yet, you'll see how Joker gets his gang. And that happened because he accidentally created and became the center of a cult, which he was ready to exploit for his own purposes. So I'm watching the movie, and near the end I said, yes, I have my next idea. The cult of Paddock the Patsy, which all the nutters belong to whether they believe it or not. Right now as I type this, I'm on cloud 9. Do you know what other mass shooter had something of a cult following? That would have been James Holmes, convicted in a 2012 shooting at the Aurora, Colorado movie theater during a midnight showing of The Dark Knight Rises. I left a link to a Daily News article about Holmes' fans titled, "Thousands of Letters Sent to James Holmes Reveal Sick Fixation with Theater Shooter." In it we learn of the Holmies, people who say all sorts of things online professing their love for James Holmes. One guy even said, Holmes didn't do it, even though Holmes was found outside the theater in his car, still wearing his body armor, and he confessed to the cops on the spot. In another article from the Daily Mail, from Valentine's Day cards to pilgrimages to the movie theater where he gunned down 12, we learn the Holmies also outline their admiration for the killer in disturbing drawings, which all feature his bright orange hair. He told police he had dyed it to look like Batman's nemesis, the Joker. How about that? Keep in mind, I've also read James Holmes never said to the police anything about the Joker, and it was something totally made up by the media, so maybe grain of salt time. Some Homies even go so far as to dye their hair orange. I knew a woman who actually did that 2 weeks after the Aurora theater shooting. They're out there, just like the nutters who keep saying Paddock didn't do it. And they act just like members of a cult when you present them with incontrovertible evidence of Paddock's guilt, and they just don't want to hear it. But people in cults are beyond facts, so what are you gonna do? The prosecutors in the trial of James Holmes made the case that what Holmes was after all along was infamy, which makes an interesting parallel to the FBI's contention in their LVS report that seeking infamy was what drove Stephen Paddock as well. In the case of James Holmes, the prosecutors pointed to the existence of the Homies, some sitting in the courtroom, as evidence of the notoriety Holmes craved. So that brings us back to the nutters. And while comparing them to the Homies, I came down with a bad case of deja vu. The big difference here, of course, besides Paddock not being pinup material, is there is no ambiguity about James Holmes' guilt, as there is with Paddock's being his and his alone. Still, ambiguity aside, you could dismiss all the nutters by pointing out that Paddock may have been smart enough to know that after he perpetrated this mass shooting and killed himself, there would be people spread all around the world proclaiming his innocence because they've got nothing better to do. It could be part of a sick joke on Paddock's part. To all the people who subscribe to the Patsy theory, I'd say, you do know you could be doing Paddock's dirty work for him, don't you? John Cullen over at the John E. Hoover YouTube channel, aided and abetted by his cohort Jason Goodman over at Crowdsource the Dingleberries, is trying to be the leader of the cult of Paddock the Patsy. When it comes to vying for cult leadership status, Cullen does have sort of the Jim Jones look from Jonestown going for him with the mirrored aviator shades. That's probably a coincidence, but you can't fail to notice how Cullen spares no expense in the editing of his videos, making sure you get enough of the audio-visual razzle-dazzle that goes by so fast you don't have time to think. None of this is accidental. All of this is by design, and it's a dirty trick. But like most con artists trying to run cults, and all cults are run by con artists, Cullen and Goodman exclude anything that could undercut the believability of what they're trying to sell you. They both live in classic bubbles where what they say has little trouble for the most part getting out, but at the same time an almost impossible task for anything of substance to get in. The activities of these two cretins should bother you. Their activities bother me because I am not a free speech absolutist, and because when I go back to Nassim Nicholas Taleb, I remember him saying, if you see fraud and you don't say fraud, you are a fraud. I should have that embroidered on a pillow and put it on my couch. Well, that's it for today. Please leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Like, subscribe, share, throw money at me. You know the drill. I'll be back in 2 weeks because Alex has some life maintenance tasks that need attended to. Have a good one. What was that, Irv? Move my hand?